So you're the game that took down the entire American video game industry in the 1980s. I thought you'd be bigger.
Oh man, I remember seeing E.T. at the movies 3 times in the summer of 1982 and I loved it. To be honest, when Christmas came around, I was pretty psyched because I wanted a ColecoVision with Donkey Kong. But we got E.T. for the Atari 2600 and you know what? That was, okay. Yeah, I remember watching my older brother play this way back and he knew how to play, of course he did. He read the manual. And I'd swear he beat the game, but it must be one of those personal Mandela thingies localized to my 11-year-old pea-brain, because these days he tells me he never beat it. And sure, I played it too, but I was nowhere near as good as him. But I gave it a go now and then, never thinking that it was garbage like Donkey Kong or Pac-Man for the 2600. But I was always thinking, man, this is tough. So here we are creeping up to a full 40 years later with decades of video gameplay knowledge under my belt, with me wondering, is this game as bad as everyone says? Okay, let's start off with the fact that any game you don't understand is going to seem stupid or complicated. And I'm not saying this game isn't a little complicated for an Atari game, but it sure is not stupid. I think a lot of people that tried this game when it was out, and many that have tried it over the past 40 years, have never read the manual or learned how to play from someone else, and that's a real shame. Now granted, the game is as well known and legendary as Super Mario Bros., let's say, but for all the wrong reasons. It has the stigma of being the worst game in the history of video games, and purportedly, E.T. single-handedly brought down a $3 billion video game industry in North America. That's if you listen to the mainstream media. And the vast majority of internet users, did you hear my finger air quotes there? Subsequently, I'm compelled to defend E.T. and say on both counts, E.T. is innocent. Sure, Howard Scott Warshaw could have just made a Pac-Man clone like Steven Spielberg wanted, and it would have done fine. But it would have been equally shredded by the critics of the day as a cheap money grab. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but what Howard Scott Warshaw did instead with very limited time was create a world in which elements of the movie would be integrated into the gameplay. So here's the scoop. You traverse the whole pocked landscape in search of 3 phone communicator parts. The land map is like a 6-sided cube with the top being the forest and the bottom being the buildings, and the rest wrapping around the cube side to side. Sounds easy at first, but take note. There's a counter at the bottom. That's your energy. That drops with every step you take. While you search the land and get hassled by bad actors like the FBI agents and the scientists. Wait a minute, did I say this game was from 40 years ago? Moving on. If the scientist captures you, maybe he'll haul you back to the Science Institute. You know, a little payback for all you aliens visiting us and probing our says. If the FBI agent touches you, he'll steal whatever you have, like parts of your phone communicator, or your Reese's Pieces, or maybe your confidential documents. Again, moving on. The key to safely making your way around to find the 3 communicator parts and completing the game is using the blue icons that pop up on the top of the screen. Those blue icons represent power zones you're stepping in. When you're over one, it means you can hit your joystick button and use that special power. The question mark will let you know if there are any parts of the communicator in a nearby well. And that's right, they're not holes, they're wells. Well sure, you can just drop in these wells, but remember, you only have so many life points, and lifting yourself up out of a well eats those up. There's an eat candy icon that looks like an eye, but it's really E.T.'s heart. When you spot one of these, if you have any Reese's Pieces, you can press the button and eat as many as you want to get some points back. Because remember, those points drop with any movement. If you're over one of the shouting E icons, that calls Elliot. Elliot may come by and collect your candy. If you have 9, he'll chase away the bad guys and he might even bring you a piece of the phone if you need it. Less than 9 pieces and Elliot just takes them for bonus points at the end of the game. Any arrows will warp you in that direction of the cube when you press the button. A quick way to escape an adult, but it could land you right on another adult, or in a hole. If you see a building icon that kind of looks like a Roman numeral 3, it will send any of the people on screen to the building zones. If ET is not on a power icon space and you press the button, he'll raise his head and may repel a bad guy away. If you're on the move and you're not on one of the power spots and you press the button, ET will run like a mother. Finally, the most important icon is the one that looks like a space invader. This is the spot you need to find to call the mothership to come pick up your lonely lost ass when you're holding 3 communicator parts. So if you see it pop up, then remember that screen and the location, because there's only one of these spots on the whole map. But once you get all 3 parts and find the call ship icon, you hit the button. That'll trigger a timer. Now you have a few moments to find your way back to the forest, which is usually just up. Then, as the timer runs out, you need to be placed right over the area with the reticle-shaped icon. It looks like a square with a dot in it. If you're right there when time runs up, the mothership will come down and pick up ET, and you've won the game. Now, there are a couple of things to discuss, and that's the difficulty, which can be managed by the game you choose and the difficulty switches. Let's just say Game 3 is a great way to explore and understand the game, as there's no FBI agent or scientist to hinder your return to the stars. As far as the other difficulty options, well, read the manual. You can easily track down a PDF copy online. Now let's talk about the biggest complaint over the years, and that's falling in holes. And like I said, these are actually wells. Remember when I said how Howard Scott Warshaw incorporated elements from the movie? I mean, I remember a shit ton of wells in the movie, don't you? So many that, to this day, I wonder if Spielberg actually had some unhealthy fetish with them. And hey, speaking of wells, if everyone paid attention to Howard Scott Warshaw's clear understanding of the existential threat that wells were to the human race in the 1980s, maybe we wouldn't have had baby Jessica fall down one, huh? So yeah, there's a lot of falling down into wells or holes, whatever you want to call them. But this is part of the challenge and also necessary to find parts. But once you learn to get out of the wells properly by when you float up to the top, you stop pushing up right when the screen changes and then just move to the side. You won't just keep falling in the well over and over. So it's easy. Get over it already. Okay, so maybe not the wells, but the main story's there. E.T. needs to build his communicator, signal the mothership, and get to the landing site to return home, all while avoiding scientists, FBI agents, eating candy, dressing in drag, and throwing back some beers. I'm not here to say this is the greatest game ever, but I'm sure I could rattle off 100 games worse than this. This game isn't for some modern, hold-my-hand gamer while I sit here in my depend diapers on the couch eating CBD gummies. No. But if you're willing to play a fast-paced game of cat and mouse that requires quick thinking and observation of your environment, with probably 70% part skill and maybe 30% luck, then this is a game for you. And if you beat the game, generally, it only takes about 6-7 minutes, and I think speedrunning this could be really fun. In the end, I'm glad Howard Scott Warshaw takes no real offense to all the grief this game receives to this very day. And he looks to the positives of it being the foundation of one of the greatest urban legends in video game history, and that alone surpasses the legacy of any game that was simply considered pretty good for its time. But in this one man's humble opinion, it's a good game, long overdue for some positive recognition. But then again, what the hell do I know?